Welcome back into The Future is Female. Gabby Ducharme here alongside my co-host Nicole Pinter. Nicole, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. This week, Northern Illinois saw like 6 to 10 inches of snow. So there's a lot of snow on the ground. But I heard
I
Arizona
love
got
it.
snow too.
They did. Oh my gosh, we had hail like nobody's business where I live, like in Arizona. We had hail like no other here in downtown, and it was kind of crazy. I was super distracted. Didn't pay attention at all in sign language class. It was great. Yeah, I kind of just hung out that night. I played on my new little video game console that my mom got me. It was great. I played Animal Crossing on the Nintendo Switch. It was fun. Yeah, I don't know. We'll kind of see how the weather lands. I guess it's supposed to rain again tomorrow too, so we'll see. Kind of hope it does. I'd love to just like spend the night at home with like the rain falling really hard. Um, Maybe that's just like the nostalgia in me from like when I was a young child. I don't know. I don't see a lot of rain from California, so.
I was gonna say it's not something you see every day, especially in
Well,
Arizona.
yeah. Yeah, especially in Arizona and in California both. You just don't see it at all. But that's okay. Of course, as the rain and the snow was falling, though, there was a lot of sports news happening on the TV because, of course, we can't really go to live sporting events right now. Um, just to start off with, the NBA. The trade deadline is kind of quickly approaching. From everything in the NBA to the NFL playoffs, we're going to get to it all, but we're going to start with my personal favorite, the basketball league. Nicole, is Zach LaVine of your Chicago Bulls going to get traded? And if he does, do you want it to happen?
I think it's likely, unfortunately. As more games pass, it comes off more unlikely to me because Billy Donovan has been working great with them. Uh, Everyone on the team loves him. He's kind of the leader of the team now, and he kind of always has been. But I think it's likely because while the Bulls are better and the Bulls are back, to have just having exciting games again and not having like BS coaching get in the way. They're still just kind of a mid-level team. Yeah, they could stumble into the playoffs. We'll see. Time will tell. But I, I'm torn because yeah, Bulls are a mid-level team. A Levine trade makes sense. Try to just keep building the team up and up and up. But also, Billy Donovan wasn't going to make them into an NBA final team in his first year. Like these are guys who
Yeah.
just got off many years of bad coaching and are basically like I feel like learning how to play basketball again in a way for Lauren Markkinen especially. But
Oh, poor Lauren
it's
Markkinen. He's an Arizona
it's
product.
do I want it to happen? No. Do I think it will happen? I think it's likely.
Well, I go back and forth in my head about it happening and whether or not it's like the right thing. Cause like, I don't know. I players all the players in the league have different like different priorities in their lives, right? A lot of there are some players that they're like, you know what? Like I'm okay with staying with a team if it means I have stability in my life and stuff. And so I feel like it also kind of depends on what Levine wants if he gets any say in this whatsoever, which usually players unfortunately don't, unless you're like LeBron James or Dwayne Wade or whatever. Um, but I wonder if he'll get a say, and if he might even say, you know what, I'm happy in Chicago. Like I doubt that most players would probably say I want to win a championship and I want to win now. I want to win while I'm in my prime because I can make a lot of money that way. But there is something nostalgic and magical about being able to say, you know what, I'm comfortable where I am. I'm cool with being in Chicago long term. I have my fiance, we have a dog, like we have a house, we're good. Um, so I don't know. I find it super fascinating that could pop into a player's head and stuff. And of course, well, like only Tom will kind of tell whether or not they actually do pull the trigger on trading him. I feel like as a franchise they probably should because I don't think he's a franchise level player. Unfortunately, I wish he was. He's a UCLA Bruin, but I don't think I think he's extremely talented. He can jump out of the freaking building, but he's just a really really good scorer. He's really not like a franchise level player like a Dwayne Wade or a James Harden or anything like that, and you kind of need one of those right now in the league to win. But him packaged with some draft picks might be able to get you a franchise level player. Of course, though, as one player is on the trade block, we turn our attention to another athlete who spent their entire career with one team and of course, unfortunately passed away in a helicopter accident about a year ago this week. Kobe Bryant. Nicole, did you have any thoughts on the anniversary and everything like that? My biggest thing in the back of my mind was thinking about the Bryant family and what Vanessa Bryant had posted on social media about respecting their space and about respecting what was put out on social media. My favorite thing I think I saw was, please celebrate their lives for what they were and not how they died. Like, please celebrate their lives here on this planet rather than remembering how they died in that horrendous day, right? I don't know, what did you have any thoughts on that day, or was it you were just kind of numb the whole time?
It's crazy it's been a year. I mean, 2020 was already a tumultuous year, and it sort of felt like that was the start of a breaking point. And it's one of those days where you remember where you were. I was at an Arizona hotel because my mom came to visit me, sitting by the pool. I remember I got a text from my brother, and I was like, no way. And it was just sort of, I'm not the biggest basketball fan. I will be the first to admit that. But how could you not know? It's just, how can that not have an impact on you because of the impact he had on the world?
Yeah.
And it still hurts. The hurt will never go away, and I feel for the Bryant family and Kobe's teammates and friends more than anyone.
I know. I feel like I remember it was on a Sunday, and we at that season of our show we had it on a Monday, and we like completely trashed everything and just kind of sat on the microphones for like 30 minutes. We didn't really know what to say. We didn't really know what to do. At least I remember I didn't really know what to do or say. And I was so jumbled in my own little brain, selfishly thinking about the impact it had on me. Like, I recognize it now that a year later, of course, that's a father and a 13-year-old daughter and a husband and an uncle and a sister and all of that wrapped up in just two human beings that passed away alongside 7 other people. I'm hoping that the impact it'll have as well long term is like on women's basketball and stuff, and realizing that the reason why Kobe Bryant got back into the sport was not because he wanted to be back in the sport after he retired. It was because he had a 13-year-old kid who wanted to play, who loved the game a lot, who wanted him to coach her, who wanted him to help her, wanted to go to games with him. That's the reason why he started playing and watching basketball again. It was because of his kid. Which is so crazy to think about. He spent 20 years, his entire life, dedicated to this game, and the reason he got back into it was because his 13-year-old daughter wanted to play it with her friends, right? He established the Mama Sports Academy because of that. He started wearing, the WNBA hoodie and going to the games because of all of that. Like, it was the impact that it could have on the women's game long term, I think, is very significant, and I feel like I more so tried to celebrate that on like earlier this week when it was the anniversary, rather than thinking back on how horrendous that day was and how it made me have rocks in my stomach for like 4 months afterwards, and the impact that it had on Vanessa Bryant and her children. Like her daughter Natalia was right around the same age I was when I lost my dad, and her daughter, I should say, my apologies, her daughter Natalia lost her sister, and their 2 little toddlers lost their father, who they'll probably never know super well. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I'm essentially rambling at this point, and there's not much more to say on it because everything that's been said has been said. But yeah, of course, Kobe Bryant will be deeply missed. He is still deeply missed to this day, and of course, as time goes on, it will get easier. In part because I think people will just kind of get stronger and become numb to the pain of that horrendous day. But I think I can best sum up this little segment by what Jay Williams said literally the day that Kobe died, and he said it's all BS. If you have quandaries with someone, if you have conflicts with someone, let it go. Stop holding on to little things because they could be gone like that. And I don't think you could sum it up any better than that. I really, really don't. Of course, transitioning from an incredibly heartbreaking day like the day that Kobe Bryant passed away and his anniversary to a little bit more lighthearted news for the rest of our show. Nicole, what happened this weekend in the conference championships? And we've got a big Super Bowl game coming up, so can you just break it down for us?
Yeah, well, so in the NFC, the Bucks will be representing the NFC. They took down the Packers 31-26. Not a super pretty game outside of the first half for Tampa Bay anyways. In the AFC, Kansas City once again will be repping the AFC. They pretty much own Buffalo from the start, 38-24. And Sean McDermott settled for field goals way too much. A lot of cowardice in this playoffs, which maybe we'll talk about once the Super Bowl and everything is ended, because there may be more cowardice there. But it will be the Bucks Chiefs Super Bowl 55. The Bucks will be the first team to play the Super Bowl in their own stadium, so that's very cool. Gabby, what were your thoughts on the conference championship games?
It was exciting. I remember I wasn't able to watch both of the games because I was at Stream Team for ASU. I was working Stream Team at women's basketball, but there was an energy in the arena. Not because of the game on the court. The game on the court actually was kind of terrible. It was what was going on their screens. It was what was going on, in football that people were consistently checking. I swear, if it was culturally appropriate to, or if it was just, not wildly inappropriate to, I feel like the coaches would have been checking the score of these games as well. But anyways, I thought it was exciting to see Aaron Rodgers playing at home. It was so Tom Brady of him to just walk into freaking Lambeau Field and win on the road in the middle of January. That's just such a Tom Brady thing to do, especially because he plays in Florida now. So I think we were kind of discussing it earlier. Legacy-wise, both of them are kind of set in stone at this point. I do think Rodgers needs to win one more. I feel like he wants to win one more, but the Packers hate themselves and they just don't want to win one more, I guess. So I thought it was extremely exciting. I'm excited about the future of Josh Allen as well. Unfortunately, I have a bad feeling he's going to be caught up in the legacy of Pat Mahomes. Him and Lamar Jackson are both going to be stuck in the same era as Pat Mahomes, and they're going to be hating themselves for the next decade because of that. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the Super Bowl. I always get excited about the Super Bowl, even though the NFL and football is not my favorite sport.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Super Bowl 55 more next week. As for other issues happening, Deshaun Watson officially requests trade from the Houston Texans. Now, this actually happened a few weeks ago, but now it's official with the new head coaching hire, which is the Ravens assistant / wide receiver coach and passing game coordinator David Culley. This is such a what are you doing, Houston hire? Listen, I'm not going to say this guy can't be a good head coach, but with the Ravens, they had the worst passing offense, and their wide receivers really weren't good. So it's really such a head-scratching hire from them. He's also 65 years old, and he just finished his 27th season as coach in the NFL. So again, it's not like he's super unqualified or anything, but it's such a head scratch, and it's clearly not for the future. He's 65 years old. How much longer is he going to be coaching?
My issue with it as well is why would you ever want that head coaching job as your quarterback is leaving? Not just your quarterback, your franchise quarterback is leaving. Just to be clear, you're about to take over a franchise that's about to be in shambles because you're not gonna have a QB. Your franchise is nothing if you don't have at least a semi-decent quarterback and elite defense and an elite offensive line that can protect him and this. They have none of that right now. That's what I find most shocking. I'm really? It was worth it to you to take over this job? Okay. I guess that means I'm never going to be an NFL head coach, but I would not want to take that over just to get fired in 2 years and be out of a job completely.
Well, and I think it was a turnoff for a lot of other big name possible head coaches. I won't speak for Eric Bieniemy, which will, for someone, for the love of God, hire this man. Bears, it's not too late to back out and do the right thing here. My Bears rant will come when it's officially the off season. Don't worry. But yeah,
well,
so
here's my thing. Nicole, here's my thing. There's this one video by Casey Neistat that literally just says, like, it's all about please do the right thing. Like, if you find something that's not yours, return it. Please do the right thing. Like, write that on everything you own. Write it on your cell phone. Please do the right thing. If lost, return to blah blah. And it's like, I want to say the same thing to the NFL about the coach, about Eric Bieniemy. Please do the right thing. Hire him. Please do the right thing. It is it's enough like oomph to get somebody to do it, but it's still polite and not do the right thing, you know. So I agree with you there. I totally agree with you there. Back to what you were saying though.
But yeah, so Watson requests a trade. The Jets and Dolphins are front runners. Oh my gosh. Jets and Dolphins are front runners this week, or not this week, but for Watson. I think every team should be calling Houston. I will continue to dream about Watson in a Bears uniform until it doesn't or does happen. So every team should be calling Houston. It's almost easier to talk about the teams that shouldn't be calling Houston, which I would say is Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Seattle, Green Bay, depending on whatever happens there. You could argue in and out of Baltimore, honestly, and same with Buffalo, but I would say Buffalo and the Jags because they have the number one pick. If I'm missing anyone, let me know. But it's easier to talk about who shouldn't rather than who should. You could argue the Chargers because Herbert looked good and they have him on a rookie contract. But yeah, every team should be calling.
Yeah, every team be getting on the phone. Get on the phone right now with Houston Texans management. See what you can offer up for him, including your Chicago Bears. The disaster that is Mitchell Trubisky just needs to end. I don't know if it's for my sanity on this show or if it's for like the sanity of the entire franchise, whichever comes first. But yeah, the NFL.
He just got engaged. Let's not call him a disaster. Come on now.
Oh, okay. I'll keep that in mind.
The city of Chicago loves him. He deserved better than how Nagy treated him. I always said it was play calling, and I was called a Trubiscaholic for that. Yeah, I don't forget that. Listen, he's still not great, but it wasn't completely his fault. Anyways, NFL head coaching hires. So Urban Meyer is back to Jacksonville, and yeah, of course he is. Are you
I was about to say, of course he is. He like retires for like 5 seconds and then reappears and then goes to Fox and does some analysis stuff. Like,
he was a good analyst too.
Oh, he's a really good analyst. He's a really good analyst.
A little bit. But,
I know Urban Meyer ignored the ever living you know what out of me. It's fine. But yeah, Doug Peterson.
So Doug Peterson was fired from the Eagles just 3 years after his Super Bowl victory with Nick Foles. The Eagles go on to hire former Colts offensive coordinator Nick Sirianni. Lions hired Dan Campbell. He was the former, oh my goodness, my voice today, former Saints tight end coach. He played with Detroit in the late 2000s. He was on that 0-16 team. What are your thoughts on just these hires? We're not going to talk about all of them, but real quick, what's your thoughts on these hires?
It reminds me of this column piece that one of my professors actually wrote, because I'm in a class all about opinion column writing, and my professor is William C. Roden. He's a writer for the Undefeated. And you know, he's one of the biggest names in sports writing. But anyways, he literally wrote an entire article all about NFL head coaching hires and how they don't hire enough black men to coach these teams. And the only way that that's going to start happening is if players stand up and say that they want more representation in the front office and on the sidelines. So that's honestly kind of the one thing that I take away from it. We're 100 years into this league, and the black man on the football field is still not really seen as equal. And he does a really great job of describing it in the article, way better than I'm describing it right now, because it's not just like a blanket statement, and I realize that. But the way that he describes it in the article, it just kind of talks about how many black coaches get interviewed versus, say white coaches. And the statistics are kind of astounding. And he discusses the ins and outs of how complex there is, like how complex of a racial divide there still is in the league. So honestly, that's kind of my thought on it. I think it unveils a lot in this article that I think a lot of people still need to digest and recognize. So that's kind of, honestly, those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a part of it is, think about the owners in the NFL, who are mostly the people hiring the coaches, sometimes GMs. Depends. I don't exactly know how it works, but they're all old, almost all of them. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like an insecurity thing. Actually, Max Kellerman described this really well in First Take. That it's almost like they don't want to see a black man leading. Like they're, whatever it is, whether it's conscious or subconscious, whether they know they're being racist or not, it's still racist. And he made a good point. And it's so sad we're still here in 2021. And, Eric Bieniemy is not a head coach. And it's not like it's a resume thing, because Dan Campbell has a very short resume. And I mean, if you heard his speech, I don't know, Gabby. What Eric Bieniemy said about not being hiring sounds more like a coach than what Campbell said about being a coach. And that's, Lions should be cautiously optimistic. If you can hire a good offensive coordinator or defense coordinator, yeah, maybe they'll be fine. But it's astounding. It's not like, oh, maybe they're not the right person for the job. Hire the right person for the job. But then you look at these guys' resumes. Like, I don't think Nick Sirianni called the plays for the Colts. And it's why? Why are we still here? And hopefully Eric Bieniemy is hired next season. After next season, hopefully more are hired. Maybe Jim Caldwell will be back in the NFL. Just for the love of God, just these are qualified people who deserve a chance to be head coaches.
It's sad. It really is. It's sad to look at how slowly things move in sport. And part of the reason why things move so slowly in the NFL, I think, is because coaches and owners and GMs have a lot more control over what happens than players do. Like, the NBA is probably the most player-friendly league out of all the major professional sports. And so because of that, I think it really goes to show that, there are genuine good things that can come out of a player-run league. The NFL is not a player-run league right now. It's an owner and GM-run league. The good thing that comes out of a player-run league in the NFL, possibly smarter head coaching hires and stuff like that. Of course, though, I mean, transitioning off of that, Nicole, where do you want to take us next?
Well, we do have some history. Jennifer King, she was with the AAF Arizona Hotshots when that was a thing. I still miss it. Rip the XFL too, but that will be coming back. She was hired as the first black female assistant with Washington, so on Ron Rivera's staff. Really cool to still see history. She's been working up the ranks for a while. Oh my gosh. And just really happy for her, and hope that she's the first but not the last. Transitioning though to college basketball, because I don't know how much time we have. The ASU men's basketball team, Gabby.
Why?
ASU men's basketball team.
Just why? I look at it and I'm like, I look at it and I think in my head, does nobody know how to box out? Does nobody know how to move their feet defensively? Defensive slides. Anybody do those when they were children? Was it just my team? Was it just my team that spent entire hours of practice doing just that? And then it's your in-state rival. And then you turn around during the Zoom press conference and you blame the refs for the fact that you lost. And then you go down to visit your in-state rival 2 days later. And then you get your you-know-what kicked into the you-know-what. You literally get your butt kicked into, another state at this point. You don't even deserve to be in-state rivals with them because they're just so much better than you. And you literally proved how pathetic it was that you blamed the refs for the fact that you had lost 2 days earlier. Like, you proved it, how pathetic it was. If you had gone in and smacked them in the you know what, like, if ASU had gone down to Tucson and just handed U of A new one at McHale Center on the road, I think it would have looked a little bit better. But because there just wasn't a lot of, like, because they just got swept off the floor, it was pathetic. It kind of made Bobby Hurley look pathetic. And I don't like saying that about the Sun Devil men's basketball team, because they are extremely talented and they should be way better than they are right now. Their record is 4-8. 4-8? It's abysmal.
Yes.
Their record is abysmal. Rant over.
Yeah, it's bad. Listen, I've had my fair share of issues with Bobby Hurley since I came to ASU freshman year, but man, Vaughn Jones explained this on Hypothetically Speaking, when like a win against your rival comes down to like a foul, you didn't really deserve to win, and that's right. And that's just it. And what was it? Monday night was even worse. Like, they didn't score until there was like 10 minutes left in the first half. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it was just bad. You can't have this type of recruiting class and not do anything with it. Their only chances of getting into NCAA tournament at this point are enough teams opting out. But moving on to Michigan. So the health department shut down for 2 weeks, which is really upsetting because of the COVID variant is in the area, is in Washtenaw County. Michigan men's basketball team was looking fantastic. The women's basketball team actually just suffered their first loss of the season to rival Ohio State, but they were looking great. Michigan hockey just swept Notre Dame. So yeah, it's really upsetting. But they'll be back. Hope everyone's safe. Gabby, run us through women's basketball real fast.
Really quickly, ASU women's basketball, they split their home games this past weekend, and they probably should have won them. It was their first time playing in about 3.5 weeks because they had COVID issues on their team. They still had like 3 players missing, and a lot of them are like the very best of the best stars on the team. But anyways, they got their you-know-what swept off the floor on Sunday afternoon by Utah. They won closely. They won a very close matchup against the University of Colorado Boulder after Boulder had just beaten number 1 Stanford. So it's like they're so inconsistent right now, and they have so many players missing that you really don't know what version of the team you're going to get. And unfortunately, that does not bode well for them going into this weekend. I'll be calling the game Friday night on BlazeRadioOnline.com. UCLA versus ASU. UCLA is the 7th ranked team in the nation right now. ASU's not ranked. ASU's like in the middle of the Pac-12 right now. UCLA is right at the top of the Pac-12, right up there with Stanford and Oregon. So it's not getting any easier for them, pretty much. We'll see. Stay tuned for my call tomorrow night to see really what happens. Being young and being on the road in the middle of a pandemic with players missing doesn't bode well for you. I'm just putting it that way. Of course, transitioning away from ASU into Duke and Virginia women's basketball, both teams actually opted out of the season, which is really, really big news. And it's news, though, that it frustrates me because it should have made national headlines when it happened, even more so than it did. But I really only saw smaller, like women's basketball bloggers really going in depth about what happened. I didn't see the same amount of coverage as like you probably would see if like the Duke men's basketball team opted out of their season. That would have been national headlines across the country, and it would have dominated, the Primetime Sports Center. The women's team, that's not dominating Primetime Sports Center, and not at this exact moment, at least. Not at this in this era that we're currently living in. So they opt out of the season. We'll see if other teams follow as conference play kind of rolls on. I'm shocked that ASU women's hasn't opted out of their season yet after missing a month of play, but I guess that's the stubbornness of the NCAA to continue playing. Moving on, of course, MLB, they make history. Nicole, nobody is going into the Hall of Fame this year for the first time since 2013. What happened?
Yeah, and only the 9th time ever. It was sort of like an ethical dilemma for a lot. Listen, we'll have to go in depth next week on the MLB Hall of Fame because there's a lot of things wrong with it. Should no one have been inducted this year? I don't know. I think Barry Bonds should definitely be in. Pete Rose should be in. I will be biased and say Sammy Sosa should be in. I'll do it. Maybe he shouldn't. I don't know, but I'm gonna be biased for a sec. Curt Schilling is a big ethical one because based on his stats, he should absolutely be in, no question. He was not voted in, obviously, has to be off the ballot, and most of that stems around not just his political views, but the fact that he is a trash human being. And I'm not afraid to say that. He's a trash human being. I don't like him. No one likes him. Based on baseball stats, should he be in? Yes. Baseball writers voting is a whole nother issue that we will go into. But to finish off my future fantasies, I hope in the future more coaching staffs in the NFL will look like the Tampa Bay Bucks did this year. Made the Super Bowl, the most diverse coaching staff in the league. They've 2 woman assistants. All the major coordinators, they are Black coaches. And it's awesome. It's very cool. And I'm glad they made the Super Bowl. I hope they win it because I want Tom Brady to get a 7th. But we'll talk about that more next week. But hopefully more coaching staffs will look like the Tampa Bay Bucks in the future.
There you go. That's her future fantasy for the week, and it kind of goes in line with the article that I was describing earlier by William C. Roden. Go check it out on The Undefeated if you haven't already. And, of course, for Nicole Pinter, I'm Gabby Ducharme. Thank you so much for joining us here on The Future is Female. We will see you guys next week.